This is Pussy Power Festival 2024, and my name is Naomi Baraza, the director for She Main Table, feminist, grassroots feminist, and campaigner for human rights, especially economic, social, and cultural rights. I'm here with my co-hosts who will tell us her name.
Hi, I'm Diakhoumba. I'm a Pan-African feminist in philanthropy. I am from Senegal and I've been at the service of social justice, gender, women's rights, and everything rights since little less than 20 years. You see, Naomi, I've declared my age now.
I know it's so lovely to have you, the Diakhoumba, here, and it's, as always, amazing to be in the same space with you. I've always wanted to have this opportunity to ask you, what role should donors play in decolonizing the human rights space and decolonizing funding?
You know, it's interesting that you said, what roles should donors play in decolonizing? You know the saying that you don't use the master's tool to to destroy the master's house. Here with this, you're not the first one to ask that question. Even me, I was asking it when I joined the space. It would be like asking the master to himself or herself destroy the house. So I think what I've come to realize after 3 years, looking at all those issues around localization or decolonization or decoloniality, is that it's a question, as any type of approach, how radical you go. And so for me, one, the donors are not the one who will decolonize because somehow they are the colon, do you say in English? And so it's about enabling. The role for donors in this conversation is to facilitate the capacity of others to have conversations of how they want to decolonize and how they want to shift the power.
Wow. Are you, in other words, saying that we grassroots feminists have a big role that we will contribute in the decolonization process?
You know, I'm going to be a little bit, I don't know how, controversial by saying that you, grassroots feminists, you have so much work already. You're the frontliners when things go well because you're women before you're human rights defenders. So everybody knows that you're the one caring for everybody. When things go badly, you're also the ones who are mobilizing, who are there, who are doing the work. You are strategizing for your own local struggles. Now everybody speaks about transnational solidarity. So you extend, look at you, you're standing in solidarity as a grassroots women from Kenya. And when I say Kenya, it's because I can't pronounce the exact place you're from and I know it. So you're standing in solidarity already with other countries. Then you're standing in solidarity with East Africa. You're standing in solidarity with Palestine. And now, on top of all this work, and you're busy running around to find funds to be able to do the work or implement the dreams that you have. And now on top of it, somebody will now come and say, okay, you also have the responsibility to decolonize the space. No. What I think is that those of you who have that interest, who have that time, should be the one at the forefront. And an example is that there's an organization called the Global Community Foundation, and this organization has been the one with WACSI, the West Africa Civil Society Institute. They have been the one convening some spaces to discuss shifting the power. An example is a year ago we were in Colombia where they had their meeting, and they are trying, and a lot of people were there, but very few Africans. And out of the very few Africans, very few women, and out of the women, very few grassroots human rights defenders were there. So I agree, there's a need for that voice to be there, but I don't think that we should dump one more responsibility on you.
That place you don't remember is called Korogosho. Korogosho is really a
It's not that I don't remember, it's that I can't pronounce it.
It's called, but the short of it is Koch. Koch is easy.
Yes.
The reason why for me Koch and Palestine is so relevant is because the living conditions and the material conditions for the Palestinians is the same as Korogosho, the slum that I come from. So for me, this struggle is so interconnected. when I stand for the Palestinian woman, for the Palestinian child, I'm really standing for my sister, my daughter, my mother in Korogosho. And yeah, thank you for
And
acknowledging that.
one thing, I'm not interrupting you, is that as Africans in general, but as Kenyans in particular, we are very bad at drumming our own drum, saying what we do for whom and how. Naomi, you're no stranger here. Huh? You have been in the trenches in very difficult situation. Like me, you have a big mouth. So we are very good at telling people, even those who give us a salary, that we don't agree. And then you end up on the street. So this is a reality that I want to share with the audience, is that this work, whether it's grassroots women human rights defender, whether it's somebody who feels like they are activists, feminists sitting in philanthropy, it comes at a cost, because we speak truth to power at all time in everywhere. And even the fact that you're standing in solidarity, we are standing in solidarity with Palestine. You can say it here, standing tall with the colors on you. For me, I work in an institution like many others where, because you're supposed to have a non-partisan approach, I can only say in my individual voice that I stand for Palestine, and you know it. So this is also something that I want to address here, is that at that moment, critical moment, you're showing how you didn't just stand for Palestine to stand against Israel, like the people who don't want to debate say that that is the issue. It's because you saw some realities in your own reality that you couldn't accept. You already don't accept them for your people, so how are you going to accept it for others?
No, you're
Yeah.
very, very right. Let me tell you, for 2.5 years, the She main table couldn't be registered. And you know the reason? It's because I am pro-Palestine. And they said, an NIS officer told me in my face that as long as I am pro-Palestine and I'm loud on Palestinian issues, the She main table will never get
Can you
registered. And I
believe?
was like, okay, it's okay. We will continue operating the way we've operated. Thank God, on the 7th of this month, we got registered. Now we are public company limited by guarantee.
But can you tell us, me in particular, but the audience in general, why? You've worked in the human rights field for more than 2 decades and a half. Is it 28 years and or more? And there's a lot of things you have done that were in the framework of other organizations, but I think out of everything you have achieved, 90% was on the volunteering, discreet, at night, etc. So what took you away from the sideline to say, you know what, let me start an organization?
Because after leaving Amnesty International, a lot of people feel like I am not a conformist. So people feel like, this one is a troublemaker. And I am not about to be a conformist.
Yes.
And so I felt like I want to be able to continue with my voice, with my agency. I want to stand for what is right. I want to be able to say, Diakhoumba, this is wrong. And if that space can only be in an organization I have established, so be it. But also, remember that there are many things I picked from Amnesty, which I loved, and how it worked, and how we undertook activism. I would have loved to continue in that space, but people outgrow spaces. And so I thought, why don't I transfer the skills and the experience to an organization I can influence in decision making? So yes.
We share that love for the yellow candle. For those who don't know, we worked in an organization. Naomi was there for longer, called Amnesty International. And what, for me, I shared with you is that we even shared the title. We were both in charge of activism, me for Africa, you for Kenya. And it's really this ideal that when everything is dark, when everything goes badly, your friends or people in your country or in spaces that you care for are disappeared, are criminalized, etc., that you have this whole movement of people who can come. And because we spoke about decolonization, for me, for a long time while I was at Amnesty, I felt like there was a missing piece, which was we were denouncing outside injustices and inequalities. But then inside the organization, sometimes it felt like, a typical culture, corporate culture of we have people in Africa, Asia, Latin America, very well, we love you, we love your work, you're in the front line of saying no to your government. And then we have people in other geographies, in London, who somehow, some of them, I don't like to generalize, couldn't forget their white privilege and the fact that they were somehow superior. And I think that for us who have been exposed to the wonderful side of organization, human rights, it's not only Amnesty, the UN and all this, we also have been conscious that by being there, we were also facilitating the perpetuation of a
Of the
certain culture.
privileges.
Yes. So I think I love that you have found your house, like your organization is the future for you. Will there be anything else? Because none of us likes to do one thing. Do you feel like once you will have this, now that you have this organization, will you be able to still have this time, freedom to care for the things you care? Because I know it's not just activism you care about.
Definitely. And let me tell you, for a long time, it never mattered so much to me that this country did not talk about spinal cord injury until now. I have lived experience. And so that's the new thing I'm going to add onto my bucket. But also, I have great love for children. Babysitting, I am not leaving it. I will continue babysitting when I am not doing the She Main Table's work.
Yes. We forgot something. Why the name?
The She Main Table, I tell you, when we went to South Africa in 2016 for the training for researchers, when people left to go back to their countries, I remained behind for a week. And so I went because I was feeling, you remember we were staying at Santon. Oh my God.
I love the way you say you remembered when I only joined 2 years later, but I was in your heart.
Oh yes, definitely. So this girl has always been a partner in crime, especially in Amnesty, and we were known for that. Our noise was equals to the entire continent, the two of us. So in South Africa, so I was left behind because staying in Santon suffocated me. Because from Nairobi, from Korogosho, how do you stay in Santon? So I wanted to stay in, and it was my first time that time to be in South Africa. I didn't feel like I was in South Africa. So I decided to remain behind and go to Soweto. And so I went to Soweto. I got a guest house. I stayed there for a week. And so every evening I would go to this restaurant run by this South African sister, and I became fond of it. So one Tuesday, I went there and sat at the usual corner, and she said, but today you'll be removed there. And I asked, by who? She said, by lovely sisters will be coming in. But when they come, I'll introduce you. I don't know if they'll want you in their group, but I will still introduce you. So these wonderful sisters came at 5, and they were looking elegant. And I felt like I was going to be out of place. And then they came in, and then this lovely sister introduced me, and she said, this is another sister from Kenya. And they all started discussing toxic this, toxic that, toxic this, toxic that. And they talked about relationships, they talked about jobs mainly. And then I asked if it was okay for me to sit there. They were like, yes, sit in. And then they started talking about the judiciary, and I'm like, I'm not a lawyer. They said, we are judges of the High Court. I was like, that's even more scaring. They said, sit here. And so some men would say, can we join you? And we said, no, it's the main table.
Yeah.
The table was the main table in the hotel,
Yes.
only for she's.
I love it.
And so that's how we got the name. But later, our friends said, can we start including grassroots partners, our partners we work with in the slums? Because they probably go through this. And then when they came, they were like, gosh, this is what we need. So we opened up the space. And when we opened up the space, they started coming in. And we said, we might have to change the name. They said, no, you know what? Figuratively, this name is what we need, because we want to be in spaces where we are able to influence decisions. So we keep the name, but not with the literal name of a
Yes.
table, but because we want to be in spaces that we influence as women.
You know, it's so interesting because while you were talking, I was like, you know, I'm trying nowadays to look at what does every moment of my day, of my week mean, you know? And when you were saying trying to be in the spaces where the decisions are taken, there's been a huge tension in me that many people tell me, oh, we never see you again in the women's rights or feminist spaces. We see you a lot in those more mainstream human rights and things like this. And I always tell them, I just feel like we need to spread our power. And so those of us who, as you can tell from the accent, can communicate in different spaces, it's interesting to take our feminist politics, especially African feminist ones, with all the lenses that we add, and be in those very male dominated spaces where people are actually deciding on things that don't really seem like it's important for us, but when you scratch, you realize that on the side of those conversations there's something or something. Just knowing that the space is there and just being there, it changes the conversation in boys clubs, in haters club. And these days with all the anti-gender work, they are very good at infiltrating the movement, the progressive movements. And I'm not saying that all of us should become spies, but what I'm saying is that I just feel like both in terms of survival in the movement and in terms of efficiency, we need to be everywhere. So having people like you starting spaces that are actually had started long time before. This is why I pushed you on the history. Is that it's not that you woke up. Well, you said what, 7th of November? It's not like you woke up on the 7th of October to create this. As you beautifully explained, this was a process that was already happening, that was not formalized, and that for various reasons you need to formalize.
It was actually very organic. And let me tell you the story of registration. So we started we started doing activism around the right to health, the right to education, and the right to adequate housing.
Yeah.
Just what I used to do at Amnesty. And these women were like, for how long will we continue doing things that we can't scale up because we don't have money? Because while I was at Amnesty, I would support these things from my pocket. And I said, you know, I no longer have money. Then they said, but why don't we do like every other organization, formalize and look for money from donors? And so it was pressure from our partners in the community, our members in the community. So we were frustrated. We were almost thinking we will never get registered. We've written to a couple of organizations for fiscal hosting. We thank God it's come.
You see,
We thank God it's come. But I wanted to ask you something. Would you be would donors or partners, development partners like you and others, trust us enough to support us, to fund us?
you know, we were discussing it during the Pussy Power Festival today on that donor panel or funders panel. You know, me, I can't speak on behalf of everybody. What I can say is that if people are saying the truth, if people are respecting the values of their organizations, yes. Yes, because you just explained that you have a vision for a better world. You have dedication. It's not as if you're also working in Coca-Cola in the morning and you're doing something else in the afternoon. This is what you want to do. And most importantly, it's not just you sitting in some neighborhood deciding, oh, I'm going to save the people from, let me try, Korogocho or somewhere else. It's really like a call from several people who are really wanting to see this exist because they have seen it working, but it was struggling. And these are spaces that are so important beyond the externality of it, but just the fact that you can come together as like-minded people and people who are supporting others all the time to offload and say, you know, this is what I'm experiencing and really the part I love is what you were saying around the discussing the finances. You and I have also done that because somebody, our sister, the troublemaker from Nigeria, Luvi, she just did a piece saying that for social justice, like all this thing happening in the world that people are saying, we don't understand, humanity has become crazy, they put crazies in powers everywhere. And she said, no, 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 what's happening is that we have failed as social justice people because we came from a place of privilege and we forgot that the masses who are the one voting, they are busy struggling for their own economic stability and justice. So until we support people to achieve a certain economic and financial wealth that liberates their mind for them to be able to join the social justice, it's not going to work. And even all of us, and you in particular, at the grassroots level, your own economic wealth under our own terms, I'm not saying we should all become capitalists suddenly, but having this stability individually, collectively, transnationally, will make that we'll be able to fund, and we won't be here discussing all the time what funders do you think they think, what's the trust. My mandate in the organization where I work is for 8 years. I've done 2.5 years. After all the disruption that many of us as African feminists or as people from the South that were allowed, and I don't like to use the word allowed, but it's true. You can be the best in the recruitment process. It's very easy to dismiss us. Sorry, the embassy can't give you the visa. Oh, sorry, you can't have whatever. You need to have,
like the
you
UK did to me. You
remember?
remember
Yes.
the way they denied me a work
Yes,
permit.
yes. If you can only apply or get the job if you have a work permit. That is to be translated as we are only hiring Westerners, and So once you see all this, you think, are we going to continue like this? Like, you have been at this for the more than 3 decades. I've been at this for 2 decades. What are we telling the young people who are really determined in a place like Kenya to even lose their life for change? Are we going to continue the same? I think for me, I want to dedicate I'm turning 45 in July, the next 5 years of my work, because after that I'm retiring, to really finding ways for people not to need to philanthropy, not to need any kind of interaction where you have to, how do you say in English? It's not beg, but it's close to beg, where you have to ask for money to be put in your hands and lose parts of your dignity in the process, even if you're proud and everything. The pressure of having and this, I'm telling you what I'm hearing from grassroots community organizations, and especially those working on issues that are not popular, those working for people's freedom, those working for people's identity, expression, social sexual orientation. Where even if you know that the funder or the person you're going to is a horrible person, you think, I'm gonna make it not work, and I have all those people waiting for salaries, for even eating in some context. Yes. So for me, those of us who were blessed with privilege from birth, we have to be the one to find the solution for people and to be the voice for people, not to need that anymore. So it's a long podcast that we would need, my
That's
sister.
powerful.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. It makes me remember that you have not changed, my sister.
Thank you.
You
That's
are the very
important.
one. You still that
Look
very
at me.
Diakhoumba
That moment was for this.
that used to join me in troublemaking in
Yes,
London.
yes, because we were careless and young.
No,
We
but
forgot
remember,
that we needed a job.
But we never got fired, remember? We never got fired.
That's
because
true.
while we
left
were
with a head high.
troublemakers, we were bright minds,
Yes.
number one.
Yes.
But we also always telling them the truth. It was just uncomfortable truth.
Yes.
And we were the only black in that whole team. So we needed to let them know that these privileges
Yes.
don't trickle down to the people we are representing.
Yes. And this is what our identity, many people were asking earlier, the people from the hotel, but you people, what is it, African feminist? What is it, social justice? And I told them, it's very easy to define us. Whatever our accent, the language we speak, we believe in the fight and struggle against any type of oppression. And what you described is us finding ourselves in spaces that are supposedly spaces where the enemy is outside. Remember, Kumi was saying that all the time. But I'm sorry, we have to disagree. Sometimes the enemy is also inside, because people have to unlearn oppression and to see us the way they see themselves. And for many people, it's difficult. But thank God we are blessed with enlightenment. And when we run our countries, because we will, if it's not us, it's our children. And we will sit down one day and remember this moment.
Yeah, it's a blessing to have a sister like you in California.
Hey, my dear, please don't mention. For me, I'm trying my best, and somebody it's no secret. Many people who are watching this, because we are doing the kind of work we do, we are passionate. We share predicament with many other passionate people, is that we get burnt out and depressed because of everything we watch and everything. And so for me, there was many times that I was like, what am I doing here? It's not possible. It's not working. It's such a little, yes, I can do this grant here, this grant there, but for one grant that I did or that I do, there's like 100 that I have to say, sorry, I can't wait, da da da. So, and it was already like this in other spaces when we were in Amnesty, like you said, sometimes we were taking our own money because there was no budget at the UN, whatever. So for me, one person told me, she said, and she's not an African, she's not a feminist, she's a woman there in California, and a colleague, and she said, you know what, Diakhoumba, you just need to do your part. And I like to surround myself with people who have wisdom, who are older, because they've been at this before us. So the fact that you have the license to authorize yourself to say, it's true, I can't do everything that I want to do. I'm disappointing some people because, I'm not God. Unfortunately, I was not born a billionaire in dollar. And so you can't say yes, but at least you know that you're doing your part.
No, you're touching people in very special way. Let me remind you, in July last year, when I was sinking in depression, you enabled an air ticket and a hotel booking in Zanzibar for me to go and just pour out, rest. I came out of Zanzibar feeling quite fresh, feeling almost healed, feeling energized to continue with my predicament. So you're touching people in very special ways. It is never so much about how much, it is so much about the gesture.
My darling,
Bless you, my sister.
I've been in trainings that we should have here where they tell you when somebody say, we are not used to that, You saw I started looking down and everything because you're like, some people really suffer. But in the training, they said when somebody says nice things about you, you have to say, yes, this is true. So yes, this is true.
Thank you so much. It's been a Feminist for Feminists podcast.
We hope you liked it.
We hope you really liked it.
We hope you were inspired.
Exactly.
And we hope to watch you being two different feminists than us sharing like this.
Exactly.
Yes.